With this tutorial I'm going to start adding some legs to my robot, and I've done a little bit of preparation ahead of this with the parts for my legs already sort of chosen and cut out, and I'll talk about those in a second. Before I do that, I want to just make a little bit more space on my robot collage image here for the legs to appear. So I just want this all to be a little bit smaller. So I'm going to select every single layer in my robot apart from the background. So I'm going to click first of all on the bottom layer, and I'm holding the shift button and selecting the very top, so it selects everything in between. And now with my move tool I can then, again holding the shift key to keep preserve the proportions, just resize that slightly, move them up a little bit, just give me a little bit more space for some legs here. I won't use all this space for legs, but it's just making things a bit nicer, a little bit of space around the edge of the whole thing to breathe. So OK on that. So now I've got my space in here in which I'm going to build my legs. Just pop them up to the top, so I've got even more space. So I'm going to build my legs in here. Okay, I've got several parts for my legs that I've chosen. Again, thinking about what we talked about, the arms. The arms are made up of the upper arm and the lower arm. They're joined at the knee. There's the hand with the fingers and so on. I'm going to have several parts for my legs. I'm certainly going to have an upper leg, the thigh part. I'm going to have a lower leg, the calf, and I'm going to have a foot. And I'm going to have something that joins the foot and the lower, the calf, part of the leg together. So I looked at my source photos and I liked these bicycle hubs. And the angle of this one, I thought that was quite nice because it looks a little bit like a lower leg, and I could see the foot coming out of here. And I liked this image as a foot. So this section here is a foot. Again, the same right sort of angle, so I'd be looking down on that. And these could be, these are almost like toes, and that would make a nice robot foot. And then another hub from a different angle, the same hub from a different angle. This I thought could be interesting as the top part of the thigh part of the leg. So those are all the parts I'm going to join together. And I've already, not cheated here, but I've done a bit of preparation. I've already separated the object from its background. So having done that, all I can do is very simply, let's just bring those up. I want to copy from here onto here, so I can grab the layer in this file, drag it on top of here, and you see it copies across. There we are. I've got the top part of my leg. So let's swivel that around. Give me that kind of angle, just kind of rough to begin with. That's fine. It's going to be a bit smaller. Let's shift key, keep the proportions. Do that for now. That's okay. I'm not worrying at the moment about how it fits in with the actual robot body. I'm just thinking about the leg itself. So I've got some space here to build the rest of the leg. Let's minimise this one for now. I've got my lower leg. So here's the section. There it is. Drag it on. It's big, so let's just make it smaller. So that's going to, you can see how it's going to start to come together here. There's the lower leg. And this was going to be the foot. So there's the foot I've separated. Bang. Here we go. And there's the foot. And on this object, I quite like this section here, just this part here, as being something which might join the foot and the lower leg together. So let's drag that in, and that's going to be a part of my leg as well. Okay. Now let's look at that in a bit more detail. Let's zoom in on those sections and let's bring it up to about 100%. Let's just, there we go. So I've got my 4 parts for my leg. Okay, and that's going to be joining those two. So we need to, first of all, rotate that into the right kind of angle. So I'm thinking about angles. Okay, I want to line up there. And it's going to be a bit smaller. I'm going to come back to this in a little bit later to get even more detail into this section, but I'm just going to position that around about there. That'll do me for the moment. Let's make it a bit thinner. I'm thinking of the space that's currently in the foot section. That would allow that to rest there, so let's rest that in there. apply the transformation. Okay, so that's now, okay, layer 4 is, I'm just call that ankle. It's not really an ankle, but you get the idea. It's the ankle section. Layer 3 is the foot. And layer 2 is lower leg. And layer 1 is upper leg. There we go. Now, the lower leg wants to be in front of the ankle, so there you go, that's better. And I think the upper leg wants to be in front of the lower leg, so that's now beginning to be a bit better, isn't it? Lower leg, a little bit scruffy around the edges, but I'm not too worried about that at the moment. Size isn't quite right, so I'm going to resize this. And I'm quite happy that this top section is bigger than the bottom, because in terms of sort of perspective, that would kind of work. But if I wanted to kind of sort of start to tweak the perspective on this, I could use here, which is called the warp mode. All right, so in my resizing, start to resize. As soon as I start to resize, this option comes up. So if I flip to the warp mode, you see what happens. I get this kind of grid. Now each of these handles, I can start to move, and they'll start to literally warp what is within that section. And I can grab the whole middle bit there, for example, and drag down. If you are going to use the warp tool, and it can be very helpful, you want to just use it quite sparingly. I think if you start making huge changes, it looks too obvious. And actually what you're trying to do with this robot is try and make it convincing as a kind of real object, as if it really could exist. Okay, so I'm just pulling those in there to get a bit of perspective on that. Happy with that. So that's going to be my lower leg, and let's just pop my upper leg above. Now I quite like the way that this joined into the, almost looks as if it's going inside the this bottom section of the upper leg. Now of course if that was a knee joint, there would be some sort of almost sort of ball joint that would join those two bits together. But I can, by overlapping those, you can almost imagine that joint would be hidden somewhere inside this section here. So I've got that as my leg, and let's just zoom down slightly. So there is my constructed leg, the 4 parts of my leg. So let's take those 4 layers and let's pop those into a new group, which we'll call leg left. Because I've got the whole thing selected, there we go. And let's pop it behind the body. So now it looks as if the leg is actually, if you imagine this is a surface underneath, the leg is being joined into, literally plugged into the body there. And let's make a copy of that, Alt key, drag it across. It's now got 2 legs. Like so. Now, let's try and make this leg look as if it's going back a little bit. So again, it's starting to do that just in terms of its size, but we could do that by looking at, let's call this the right leg. Let's open it up. The upper leg would be kind of going away from us. So let's use the warp tool to just warping it a little bit. And let's resize the whole thing. And let's warp. That's not quite working, that's alright, it's better. And let's take the lower leg. The ankle and foot together. Let's change the angle of the foot on the ankle slightly. So his legs now look a little bit as if they're at different sort of positions. And let's zoom out to see what that whole thing looks like. The legs perhaps a tiny bit big for the whole body, so let's select both of the legs together. And let's make them a little bit smaller. So there, now we've got the legs on the figure, looking rather nice. Let's take the whole thing all together, moving down a bit. And there we've got a 6-armed, 2-legged robot. Next tutorial, we're going to get really into close in on the details and start to add a bit of sort of shadows and highlights. And we'll also think about some eyes and perhaps a mouth on the head to add a bit of extra detail, a bit of more believability.